Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our observatory live stream here from the South Carolina State Museum this Saturday evening. We're going to be looking at some images that we've taken from the telescope in the past of Uranus and the moon. Right now, of course, we've got this lunar weather system moving into the area, and it's cloudy and windy, and we're just going to keep the dome closed, of course, for this evening. So I'll be showing you these past images of Uranus and the moon. By the way, my name is Matthew. I'm the observatory manager here at the South Carolina State Museum. If you have any questions, comments, anything you'd like us to answer, anything you're curious about, feel free to pop those in the Facebook or YouTube comments, and we will get those questions answered for you on the air. Um, this is actually a picture of Uranus that we have right now. It's that little tiny dot. If you're watching on your phone, you may have trouble seeing it. Remember, Uranus is a really far away planet. So even in our telescope, which is pretty good sized here at the museum, Uranus actually doesn't look very big. Looks like this little sort of pale greenish dot. So just think when you look at Uranus, you're looking at something that's really, really far away. So once again, if you have questions, feel free to pop those in the Facebook chat or YouTube chat in those comments, and we will see them right here and get them answered for you. Hi, Anita. How are you? Good to see you. So once again, if you just joined us, this is actually an image of Uranus that we took in the past from our telescope. We were going to show you an image of Uranus live tonight, but of course we have this winter storm moving into the area. And last time I checked, it was pretty darn cloudy outside and kind of that sort of moist cold you sometimes feel before a winter storm, and then windy. So not a great night for the observatory dome to be open, but we have this really nice picture of Uranus that we took in the past that we can show you. So again, it's that little green, that sort of whitish green dot there. Um, it's if you're watching on your phone, it may be kind of hard to see because remember, Uranus is a pretty far away planet. And because it's so far away, it actually doesn't look very big in our telescope. So, and again, if you have any questions, feel free just to pop those in the YouTube or Facebook comments, and we'll see them right here, and we'll have them answered. Sherry asks, can you recommend the best home telescope for beginners that we can actually see Saturn's rings? So actually, Sherry, there are a lot of even smaller telescopes that can show the rings of Saturn. Um, there's one company that I recommend looking at. It's called Orion. Orion makes really nice beginner telescopes that usually aren't that terribly expensive. I'm just going to put that in the comments here. So Orion telescopes, and I'm going to say look for their 6-inch Dobsonian reflectors. Those are some really nice beginner telescopes for you there. So those telescopes, I think prices on them have gone up a little bit just because of all the various supply chain issues and such we've been having. But I think right now they're probably running somewhere in the $350 to $400 range. And even something fairly small and portable is going to show you the rings of Saturn. So Christina asked, does Uranus always appear as greenish or do the colors change? Yeah, Uranus is actually pretty much always looks greenish. It's kind of got that greenish color. And if you look at, say, pictures of Uranus from, say, the Voyager spacecraft, that's what you see, is Uranus has that distinct kind of greenish color to it. So yeah, it's really pretty much always that color. So I think, let me look this up here. I want to look up the distance to Uranus here. I believe it's something like 2 billion miles away. So I'm asking the googly on my phone because I'm never great at remembering uh, distances off the top of my head. Yeah, so Uranus is typically about 1.8 billion miles from the Earth. So that's why it looks so small here. Jupiter actually looks quite a bit bigger in a telescope, but it's only like 450 to 500 million miles from Earth. Now we're talking about a planet that's almost 2 billion miles from Earth here. So yeah, it's going to look a lot smaller. Just as an aside here, not related to Uranus, but how many of you have been following the James Webb Space Telescope launch and deployment? If you have, let us know in the comments. So I'm going to share a website that, let's see if I can do this without blowing up anything on our view. Oh yeah, you just saw Google. Okay, I'm not going to do this, but there's a really cool website called Where is Web, and it shows where JWST is on its way out to its home, a place called Lagrange Point 2, about 1 million miles from the Earth. So if you Google it, you should find it. Let me see if that's a true story, because it is an amazingly cool website. I would put the URL in, except I don't want to blow up our live view here. So yep, it's called Where is Web? It's a NASA website. I'm going to put that in the comments here. Uh, let's see if I can. Oh well, James Webb Space Telescopes. Error. Okay. So Sherry asks, which planet appears to be the brightest in the sky here at night? Right now, that's actually Jupiter. We've kind of lost Venus down to the horizon. So that fairly bright planet you're seeing off to the southwest, that's actually Jupiter. So once again, if you just joined us, this is a view of Uranus from our telescope here at the South Carolina State Museum. Unfortunately, it's not a live view. It's a view that a picture that we've taken in the past because this is not the best night to be opening up our dome and looking at anything in the telescope. It's really cloudy and kind of windy and definitely kind of has that sort of cold, moist feeling that you sometimes get. Um, I've sometimes noticed before a winter storm moves in. So we hope everyone stays safe and dry and warm over the next few days. One thing I should note is that the museum is going to be closed to the public tomorrow because of the weather. So if any of you had plans to maybe come to the museum tomorrow, it will be closed to the public. It'll reopen on Tuesday. Christina asks, is there a time of year when you all see Uranus more easily through your telescope? So the planets, unlike the stars, aren't seasonal. So it's like with stars, we have stars that we associate with the spring sky or the winter sky. It's like Orion is a winter constellation, and then something like Cygnus the Swan is a summer constellation, for example. With the planets, it really isn't so much season, it's where the planet is in its orbit and where we are in relation to the planet that determines when we can see it. A great example of this is Jupiter and Saturn. So, several years ago, say like around 2015, Jupiter and Saturn were really, really great in the summertime sky. So I remember actually the night of the lunar eclipse, excuse me, night of the solar eclipse, rather, in 2017, August 21st, 2017. We were open that night here in the observatory, and we actually looked at Saturn that night. So now Jupiter and Saturn have migrated more into the late fall and early winter sky, at least for evening visibility. So the planets aren't seasonal. They can change when they're visible depending on where they are in their orbit and where we are. So Uranus and Neptune are going to change much slower because they're further away and they orbit slower. But in general, think of the planets as when we can see them is determined by where they are and where we happen to be. So if you've just joined us, we are watching the comments for questions. If you happen to have just joined us, I'm curious, what color do you see when you look at our view of Uranus here? Does it look kind of greenish to you or more whitish? Or what color do you see on your device, whether it's your phone or your computer, your tablet, iPad, what have you? Tell us what color does Uranus look to you from your view? Sherry says white. Got another vote for white. Any other votes for a color? So to me, yeah, it does look quite white with maybe just a really subtle greenish tint to it. Sort of a greenish off-white is what it looks to me. So if this is how Uranus looks, I love it. There's Christina says that's a perfect description. Yep, kind of a greenish off-white. So if this is how Uranus looks in our telescope, how do you think Neptune would look? We don't have a picture of Neptune, although we can see Neptune in this telescope. What do you think Neptune would look like? Any ideas? What do we think Neptune? Christina says bluish. Yeah, it does have a little bit, maybe a little bit more of a bluish cast to it. What about the size? What do you think Neptune would look like in terms of size in our same telescope here? So oddly enough, Neptune actually looks maybe a little smaller here than Uranus, but it looks quite similar in size, kind of this little dot. Yeah, it's actually a little smaller because it's a little further away. What we really notice though is Neptune is a little bit fainter than Uranus. So that's the big thing we see in the telescope. It's actually a dimmer object because it's so far away. And now that we're on the subject of distant objects in the solar system, what about Pluto? What do you think Pluto would look like in our telescope? So as you're thinking, what do you think Pluto would look like in our telescope? Or really any telescope of similar sized? Yeah, so Pluto is the furthest away planet. We do call it a dwarf planet now. It is actually not the most distant thing in the solar system. There is actually stuff out in the solar system further away than Pluto. So actually, Pluto is a tricky object to observe in a telescope because it's so far away and so small that it doesn't look like a circle. So Jupiter and Saturn look like circles, they look like disks in a telescope, as does Mars. Uranus and Neptune kind of look like circles, but they're really tiny circles, or more like dot circles. But Pluto is so far away and so small that it actually looks just like a faint star. So it actually would be very difficult to tell Pluto apart from the other stars in that same field of view of the telescope. So we'd see a bunch of star-like things in the telescope, and one of them would be Pluto, but we wouldn't really know which one. The only way to figure out which one is Pluto is to observe that same area of the sky over a couple of different nights and see if one of those stars, so to speak, actually looks like it's moving. And the one that's moving among the background stars is actually Pluto. So yeah, really, really tricky planet to observe for sure. In just a few minutes, we're going to switch off this view of Uranus and go have a look at one of our cool pictures of the moon. Again, I wish I could show you the moon live tonight, but the weather had other ideas. I think it's kind of funny because I believe the last live stream we had, which was right before Christmas, it was raining, like pouring rain when we were doing this stream. So it's like rainy night astronomy. So definitely the weather has had a bit of an impact on us. But oh well, can't completely spoil our fun. Because even if we can't see anything in the telescope, we can still see awesome pictures and we can talk about cool things. You all can ask questions. So even on a cloudy night, there's some fun things we can do. So at just about 8 o'clock, so in about 2.5 or 3 minutes or so, we're going to switch to our view of the moon. So we have some winter weather coming into the state to overnight. So this is actually might be kind of a fun time to talk about winter weather and observatories. So this wouldn't be knock on wood, so knock on this table right here, or that one right there, so you can see me knocking on things. Um, One of the things that you can have with an observatory is getting snow and ice on the dome. Now, here in South Carolina with a storm like this, and that's why I was knocking on wood, that's probably not such an issue. But if you're an observatory on a high mountaintop out west, someplace like Kitt Peak National Observatory in Arizona, or even Mauna Kea out in Hawaii, um, those mountains can get full out winter storms with lots of snow in the winter. And one of the things that can happen is you can get snow and ice on your observatory dome. And actually, sometimes what happens after a big winter storm is the employees at the observatory actually have to go up on the dome and shovel the snow off so they can get it open again. Observatory domes can get frozen shut. Lots of funny things can happen when a winter storm hits an observatory. So hopefully we don't have any of that happening here, but definitely that's something that can happen when you're on a mountaintop. Even in a place like southern Arizona where Kitt Peak is, you're high enough up that in the winter you can get snow. So, it's cool things to think about. And I said, yeah, snow on Mauna Kea in Hawaii. So you're like, what? Snow in Hawaii? Yeah, well, Mauna Kea is a 14,000-foot mountaintop. So it can get snow, even though it's in the tropics. All right, well, let's jump over here and have a look at the moon. So I am going to take our Uranus picture off. We have some relatively new moon pictures that we can show you. I think we're going to go with this one right here. Here we go. So this is an image of the moon that we took back in October around International Observe the Moon Night. So one of the questions that we get asked here at the observatory a lot is, when are we going to open back up for evening public observing? And the answer to that is we've had to put that on hold because of COVID, and also really because of some of the staffing challenges that really everywhere has had. Um, but we are looking at ways to get evening telescope viewing back. And one of the things we do have coming up in the near future, and it's kind of fun to talk about, to show you a picture of the moon and talk about this, but on May 15th, there is going to be a total lunar eclipse. So it starts sometime like around 10:30 on May 15th, so 10:30 at night, and then it goes into the wee hours of the morning on May 16th. And we are planning to be open that night. So May 15th, that's a Sunday night, going into very early Monday morning. We're planning to be open to show that lunar eclipse here. So we're starting to get those evening events back on the schedule. And that's kind of one of our first ones. So watch the museum website for more information. And once again, if you just joined us, remember that you are absolutely free, and we absolutely love it when you pop questions in the comments on Facebook or YouTube. We're happy to answer those questions on the air. So if you have any questions that you're curious about, it could be about this image we're seeing of the moon. It could be about something else in space or astronomy. Feel free to send that question our way and we'll answer it on the air. So a few years ago, we had the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11. So what Apollo mission are we coming up on the 50th anniversary of right now? This year, there's another one of the Apollo missions that we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of. Does anyone know which mission? Like Apollo 11 or 12 or 16, 17, 14. Which one? So this year, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Apollo 16. There was a South Carolinian on Apollo 16. Does anyone know his name? One of the astronauts on Apollo 16. Does anyone know his name? From South Carolina. And again, if you have any ideas, just put your response in the Facebook or YouTube comments. So once again, what was the name, or what is the name of the South Carolina astronaut that was on the Apollo 16 mission? We're celebrating the 50th anniversary of this year. So that South Carolina astronaut on Apollo 16 was Charlie Duke. Charlie Duke. So, once again, if you just joined us, this is a view of the moon from our telescope here at the South Carolina State Museum. Unfortunately, it's not a clear night tonight with this winter storm moving in. I was out a little while ago before we started the stream, and I did actually see just a little tiny glimpse of the moon through the clouds, but not enough that we would have been able to see that with the telescope. Uh, so we do have this really great view of the moon that we've taken in the past. And once again, if you have any questions or comments about this picture right here of the moon or about anything astronomy or space related, feel free to put those questions in the Facebook or YouTube comments and we'll answer them on the air. Anita says, I got lost, but you're back. Yay. So I'm just curious, what's the weather like at your place right now? Sort of a not telescope live stream related question, but a question relevant to the weather system we have moving in this weekend. What's it like at your place right now? How windy is it? Of course, it's probably cold. Are you seeing any precipitation yet? Describe it. What's it like? Here in downtown Columbia, we're definitely picking up a breeze. Other sort of random question I'll ask is, did anyone see any of the video of the volcanic eruption near Tonga today? It's an underwater volcano that went off. Did anyone see that? Like it, Anita. And Hart had to walk my chihuahua, and he says, "Cold." Yeah, it's icky out there. Yeah, there's some spectacular satellite footage of the undersea volcano blowing. You can really see the volcano blowing and kind of making quite a mess there on the surface of the ocean. So it's something to watch for if you see it. It's all over. It's easily locatable on the internet. All right. Well, we're going to go on and call it a night. We'll be back on the first Saturday of February, and hopefully the weather's actually decent that time. And hopefully we can actually get a clear sky instead of a sky that's all cloudy like we have a winter storm coming in. So that's again the first Saturday of February, same time, 7:30. So good night, everyone. Stay dry, stay warm, stay safe out there as we go through this little bit of weather this weekend, and we'll see you later. Bye now.